Welcome back to the weekly Trusted Visions podcast. As we start a new month, the team was brainstorming earlier this week of what monthly topic would resonate well with both financial professionals as well as financial advisors, OSJs, and enterprises. And I think this topic not only relates well with all of those people, but I think it also relates well with owners and presidents and CEOs of broker-dealers, because collectively and on average, we've all been in this industry for 20 or so years. And I know when I first started the industry, everybody wanted to be with that small broker-dealer where it was a family feel and you had access to top-level executives and you could call the operations people and they knew you by name and they knew about your family. And that's evolved through private equity coming into the industry and swallowing up broker-dealers, the consolidation that's continued, the regulatory environment. We had DOL and then that didn't go through. Then we had Reg BI and that's being implemented. And the consolidation has only continued. So this month's topic, we're going to call past, present, and future. And what I mean by that is, what does the future hold for the industry as a whole? And how do you as a financial advisor or financial professional plan for that? So we're going to subtopic this week's topic into a few different sections. And we're going to start with Deb. Deb, you've been with small broker-dealers, large broker-dealers. You've been with broker-dealers. I remember when I first met you with broker-dealers that closed their doors unexpectedly. And so, small broker-dealers, I strongly believe they have a place in this industry and will continue to have a place. But as a financial advisor, OSJ, or enterprise, or even a president and CEO or owner of those small BDs, can you talk a little bit about how that has changed over the last 20 years in terms of remaining relevant and your opinion of where you see those small broker-dealers having a place, understanding that technology is very important to stay relevant, that the regulatory environment's only going to continue to get tougher, and then you have interest rates that have drastically dropped, which is causing revenue loss. Can you talk a little bit about where you see those small broker-dealers fitting in going forward?
You bet, Jeremy. I love this topic. And, for me, looking back over 20 years, there's been so much change, or even when I got into this, again, 30 years ago. I liked reflecting back on where we were when I got into this industry, starting out as a wirehouse broker, with a formidable firm, and then going independent with a now a well-known independent firm, in my hometown. So there's been a lot of change. And I would say that I was trying to think of look back on some numbers, over the past, probably around 2007, is we had probably the most independent firms we had, and I'll get to the small one, but just kind of as some number things. And I think there was at one point, 5,892 firms to where we're at, in 2000 today, probably a little less than 3,500, right, of registered firms. And, around, 600,000, advisors. And I think when I got into this business from an independent standpoint, I don't know, maybe there was 350. I hate to even think back that far, but, and the independent broker dealer, not let alone the small firm, but even the independent space, was just still, kind of coming into play, right? I mean, coming out of the wirehouse world, I was thinking to myself, who are these independent? What are these independent firms, right? So I know you said, keep this short. We don't have 5 hours for me to reminisce on the past, which just, again, takes me back. But there were firms that were really making a mark, back in the beginning. And I chose to be with a smaller firm because I liked what you were talking about, Jeremy, that feel of being a part of something, being able to pick up the phone, have advisors pick up the phone and be able to talk to somebody that they knew. And, over the years, that just continued to change, right? Went from the 90s, you went, to the 2000s. You went to all of a sudden banks getting into the space. It got, more insurance firms that were getting into the space and acquiring firms. Then you started seeing all of the regulation come into play. And as all this played out, you hit you hit 2010 or even before, and all of a sudden you start seeing the consolidation, right? Because then you have these small firms, which people may think of a small firm and gauge it differently. I remember at one point, Finner saying, small firms are like 150 reps, right? I might say that it's about 250 less, mid-sized firm, being anywhere from 500 to 1,000. And Jarrett, you guys may disagree, but that's kind of how I see, because of, you look at the large firms that have 12,000 advisors, right? So you kind of have to gauge that. But as increased regulations, like what you said, market volatility, right? What happened back in the day, interest rates, market volatility, the economy, everything putting pressure on the smaller firms all of a sudden, and not just small firms, bank firms, insurance firms, right? Kind of all of the regulations and all those things affect all the firms. But what it does, and it pushes consolidation. And who can survive that consolidation, or who can survive all that cost? The regulatory cost, right? And it's going to be the larger firms. And so what you saw happening was the consolidation. Smaller firms being forced into having to be acquired or sell because they got in trouble with something, not being able to, keep net capital requirements. For instance, you saw, a lot of firms going, okay, we can't meet net capital requirements. So all those things that, pushed, I would say pushed, right? Kind of those smaller firms into just saying, we can't do this anymore. Or the insurance-owned firms that said, you know what, while we thought this was a great thing to acquire these broker dealers back in the day, right? All of a sudden we've got all this regulatory, and we did it to have a platform, honestly, for our products, right? And all of a sudden, number one, reps are independent, so they're not necessarily selling those insurance products. And then you have all the cost. And so you've just got these firms saying, we've got to get out of this. And it's continuing. That was then. We've got where we're at now with, again, continued consolidation of the smaller firms going out of business, the insurance firms. One insurance firm recently sold to another. I know we don't talk names, independent. The formidable firm I was part of, one of them, is part of a really big group, right? So you've got these bigger groups that can get the scale in the economy they need to be competitive, right? Because that's kind of now where we're at. Can the smaller firms meet those, that competition? There may be some that can, and I know that there are some that will, but my thought process going forward is, if you just take a look at economics, if you take a look at where the industry is going, continued regulation, that's not going away. What's been the one constant thing, right? To everybody, the constant thing over the past, as long as we've been in this industry, that you can rely on and you can guarantee, is that there's always going to be more regulation. Right.
Yeah. And I think, Deb, with that, and I think that's great from the perspective of with advisors and OSJs and enterprises. I actually am working with a client right now. It's a 2-person broker dealer. And we try collectively as a team to do a good job of not insulting or assuming anything, but really guiding advisors and even owners of those small broker dealers of, hey, no disrespect, but you as a 5-person broker dealer are likely not going to survive with the regulatory environment. And it's better to start your due diligence now to where you're not doing a fire sale. And even with broker dealers with 50 advisors, it's better to do your due diligence and find who your acquirer would be to help with retention purposes, rather than doing a fire sale and just going out and selling to the highest bidder. A prime example of that, I worked with a client probably 6-7 years ago, and he was looking at a few different firms, and he chose the highest bidder. And he and I had developed a pretty strong relationship. And 6 months later, I went to him and said, hey, I'm just curious, because he stepped away from the business. I'm just curious, looking back, was it the right decision? And he said, Jeremy, I got to tell you, if I had to do it all over again, that was the worst decision I ever made, because my reputation was tarnished by all of the advisors within my broker dealer because it wasn't the right fit for them. So good point to that. For sake of time, Shaun, I want to kick it over to you. And it was funny. I found it really interesting when we were talking, brainstorming earlier this week, when we were talking about technology and how can small broker dealers stay relevant in the technology offering, especially in today's times with COVID, where financial advisors have really relied heavily on technology to serve their clients. And you made a great point, and I don't want to steal your thunder, but you made a great point of some of those small broker dealers that you've either been a part of or know of have much better functioning technology than some of the larger firms. It just doesn't have the flash or the pizzazz, so to speak, as those. Can you speak, going forward, how you see small broker dealers staying relevant in technology and what advisors, OSJs, or enterprise should look for?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me this morning. And it's a great topic of discussion. In terms of technology, I mean, it's no secret that technology is rapidly evolving just in every business sector, and including personal. I don't know what iPhone number we're on now. I don't know if it's iPhone 14, 15. I'm still on, I think, 10 maybe. I'm not sure. But it's rapidly evolving, especially, in the independent broker-dealer space. And keeping up with those technologies can be a challenge for smaller broker-dealers. Now, I want to preface my comments by saying that smaller broker-dealers, in my estimation, is sub 300. I consider sub 300 a smaller broker dealer. And it is a fact, and I'll get to your point in a second, Jeremy, but it is a fact that larger broker dealers are essentially in better position to provide advisors with the tools and resources they need to be successful. And these systems include branch office, compliance systems, performance reporting, portfolio and client management systems, supervision systems. And these are very important for the efficiency of an office. If an office is able to lean on these efficiencies from technology, that puts them in a better position to recruit, which is why we're here. It takes time away from doing the heavy lifting, because you can place that on the technology where they can entertain our calls and speak to our prospects, but also retention. You need those technologies to retain your existing advisor base. And not only does the advisor need cutting edge technology, the broker dealer does as well. And I'll give you a real life example. So 6 years ago, I recruited a small broker dealer to the broker dealer I represented at the time, which we consider a larger firm. I recruited this small broker dealer. I remember when I initially spoke to the president of this firm, and his number one pain point was technology. He said, Shaun, I am looking, hey, listen, we've been in business for over 15 years. We are profitable. However, for me to get to the level from a technology standpoint I need to get to, it would exhaust all of our resources. I'm not doing any service to my advisors when they can go to a larger firm and tap into resources that can help them grow. I don't have that. My CRM at the home office level is Microsoft Excel.
Wow.
And that is not going to get it done while the president of this broker dealer, Jeremy Sharp, I highly respect him to this day. His filing capabilities are great. However, even when we were negotiating and doing the deal, the amount of Excel spreadsheets he had to provide me with was, needless to say, overwhelming. So he was able to, and this could be a topic of discussion for another day, but he was able to integrate his broker dealer as a large sub OSJ with a larger firm. And it worked out for him. He was able to retain the culture of his firm, but he was also able to find a solution for his issue, which was technology. Now, to your point you just made, I have had the great opportunity to work with a number of broker dealers in the industry, from small to mid-sized to large. And because of the new cloud-based technologies that are continually to evolve, some mid-sized firms, which is one I represented prior to joining Trusted Visions, have been able to tap into that market. So because you have additional resources, listen, it may not be This broker dealer did not have, maybe necessarily the bells and whistles that you would have at some of the larger firms. However, in terms of efficiency, they were more efficient, I would argue, than some of the larger firms because they were able to, levelize with some of the cloud-based technologies that were rolling out. So I do think that technology is very important. However, the fact remains that if you have resources, if you can balance your economies of scale, you have a better chance at receiving that technology, or an advisor has a better chance of receiving that technology they need to be successful.
Yeah, and I mean, two points to that is, when you start seeing the news, and I just read an article this morning of a broker dealer, I would consider it a mid-sized broker dealer, was just fined $15+ million. Right. When you see those with those small and mid-sized broker dealers, as a financial advisor, OSJ or enterprise, you need to really start digging under the hood of what is their excess net cap. And right. With this fine, how much leeway does it give us? And I'd be interested in, I'm going to make a comment and give my opinion, and I'd be interested in you two, of your opinion of when I'm having conversations with OSJs, enterprises, financial advisors, and they say, hey, I'm not necessarily unhappy with my broker dealer. My suggestion to them is, okay, that's fine, but should you have a problem where that broker dealer get into regulatory harm's way 3 months from now, do you know where you're going? Do you know where you and your advisors are going? And if not, at least formulate a plan B. And that plan B doesn't mean you have to go to the home office visit. You have to, dig into everything, but have that introductory call, do a technology and advisory demo, say, hey, if I was to join XYZ broker dealer, what would your offer be today? Understanding it may change. That's always my advice to clients. I'd be interested. Agree, disagree, Deb, thoughts on that comment?
No, I agree. I couldn't add anything. I think it's a that you need to do that. You've got to have a plan B.
Shaun?
No, absolutely. The unfortunate reality in our business, essentially the independent broker-dealer space, is that all of the firms, from large to small, operate on a very pencil-thin margin. And when you don't have the large economies of scale, you're only a customer complaint or lawsuit away from going out of business. I've seen it happen. I've been doing this for 20 years, not to name any firms, but I've seen many firms that from a reputational standpoint were solid. However, just a complaint or an issue just really took them under.
Yeah, I mean, look at what happened with, I think this was 2009, 2010, Medical Capital in Provident. That product put, I don't know how many broker dealers out of business, but it put a lot of them in harm's way. And my suggestion to those watching this podcast is a couple. A, for presidents, CEOs, and owners of small broker dealers, explore those plan Bs. And for advisors, OSJs, and enterprises, my feedback or suggestion to you would be, if you go to a firm like Trusted Visions, or even go directly to a broker dealer and say, hey, I just want to formulate a plan B. If they're really pushing you to get you into a home office visit and push you further than you're ready, other than just putting together a plan B, as David mentioned last month on last month's topic of working with third-party recruiting firms, that's not the firm you want to work with. I'm working with a couple clients right now that they said, hey, I don't want to be pushed to make a decision. I just really want to explore my options. And I went to the recruiter within that broker dealer and I said, look, I don't want you asking this individual for anything. And so my suggestion to financial advisors, OSJs, and enterprises is, if you're truly just looking for a plan B, if the firm that is representing you is pushing you, then that's not the firm for you. So anything to add, Deb and Shaun, before we close out this week's?
I'm good. Perfect. This is a good topic.
Well, we look forward to continuing. I made up the topic myself for this month of past, present, and future. I look forward to continuing down this topic for the rest of the month. Shaun, Deb, thank you very much. And I hope everybody enjoyed this. Should you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email us at info@trustedvisions.com. We look forward to hearing from you.